Welcome to the fourth in my series of meditations on my all-time favourite science fiction novels. Today I will be talking about a novel by one of my all-time favourite authors, Robert Silverberg, and his classic time travel romp, Up the Line. As always, a quick spoiler warning: I try not to get too plot specific, especially about the endings of novels, but please be aware there will be some spoilers ahead. Now, if you like this video, then please check out my other videos on science fiction novels and my other content. And if you like it, please hit subscribe and click the bell for notifications. Now, unlike many of the classic novels I've been discussing, today's author, Robert Silverberg, is still thankfully with us at 86 years old. Silverberg has always been one of my favourite science fiction authors, perhaps even the favourite over the years. He's a multi-award-winning author, much celebrated in the science fiction community, but he's nevertheless not achieved the same kind of widespread recognition amongst the general public, such as an Arthur C. Clarke or an Isaac Asimov, perhaps due to a lack of major movie adaptations of his work. But he's always been certainly one of my top favourites. For me, he's a major connective tissue between the golden age writers of the pulp era of the 1930s, 40s and 50s, and the new wave of 1960s writers who had a much more hip and looser style, and perhaps some may say a more sophisticated approach than pulp. There are a number of outstanding books I could have chosen for my first video on Silverberg. The Masks of Time, which is an is he, isn't he tale of a messianic visitor from the future. The Man in the Maze is a struggle to penetrate a deadly maze to reach an outcast who might just save humanity, and many other great stories. But I settled on Up the Line, partly because it's such good fun, and partly because of my deep-seated love of time travel stories and my fascination with the resulting paradoxes. And this story has a lot of those. It also has a lot of sex and humour, which as a callow 12-year-old when I first read it certainly appealed to me. So first published in 1969, it is fair to say that it does give away the time it was written in, with a lot of current era concerns in the story, sexual and racial politics, liberation of youth from conventional lifestyles and so on. But unlike many of today's stories, all this was conveyed with a healthy dose of humour, much of it self-deprecating by the first-person narrator, Judd Elliott II. The book was criticised at the time for its crudity and somewhat slender story. However, as an examination of time travel paradoxes, it excels. Set in 2059, following the invention of time travel, at least into the past, aside from historical research, humankind's main use of this boon is to basically use it for tourism. So groups of well-to-do tourists travel to famous eras and events of the past under the protection of couriers of the time service. And fleeing a boring law clerk job, Judd, who is an expert on Byzantium history, he falls into signing up and graduating as a time courier. Now, the sworn enemies of the time couriers are the Time Patrol, an FBI-style group whose job is to preserve the integrity of time and ensure no negative impacts on now time. And as well as catching time criminals, they also monitor the couriers, who naturally see the patrol as cramping their style. Many of the couriers have unhealthy obsessions, such as sleeping with their ancestors, or perhaps committing suicide by ancestorcide, and others build up luxurious alternate lifestyles in the past using their knowledge of history. So this leads to many deep explorations between the characters on the paradoxes involved in those actions. What happens if you try to kill your great many times removed grandfather? Is it possible to become your own ancestor? And does a small change in the past snowball unseen to change the present? And if it did, would you even notice? But some of the major paradoxes involve the act of tourism themselves. The acts of tourism themselves, as multiple parties of tourists visit, for instance, the crucifixion, and other major events, tens of thousands of spectators are visible, when history recorded only a handful of spectators. And no one quite seems to know what to do about the prospect of eventually millions of now-time people attending these events. Neither can they figure out why there are not already millions of people there, instead of the gradual rise. So multiple versions of the same couriers are also all over the same times in the past, causing all sorts of confusion about who knows who and when and which timeline they actually consider their present day. Judd's courier career starts well, with glorious tours through ancient Constantinople events, but naturally things begin to go wrong. Tourists do things they shouldn't, and Judd's increasingly frantic jumps back and forward through time to fix things before the Time Patrol find out only makes things worse. And his falling in love with a gorgeous ancestor compounds the problem. Multiple paradoxes are created and vie with each other for supremacy, and have a major impact on now time. However, I won't give away the resolution or the ending, but perhaps the moral of the story is, never sleep with your multi-great-grandmother. But if you love anything to do with time travel, this book is a must, and I hope you enjoy it. Well, thank you for watching. If you like this video, then please check out my other videos and my other content. And if you do like it, please hit subscribe, click the bell for notifications. And the next book in this series on classic science fiction novels is going to be Harry Harrison's The Stainless Steel Rat. So till then, everybody, stay well.